SCM Institute, Indore, is going to give a presentation on the topic entitled Estimation of Pharmaceutical Compounds by Kinetic Method and the Laboratory Experiment.
Actually, I am here to elaborate the abstract number 10, that is the estimation of pharmaceutical compound by kinetic method and laboratory experiment. Now this laboratory experiment, that particular part, I can keep at the top also, even at the bottom also. Because any research program, it starts with laboratory experiments. And when a laboratory experiment is successful, then it is being converted into a research program. And when the research program is perfected, then again it can bring back to the laboratory itself. So this is the way in which we are doing our work. In most of the colleges in Madhya Pradesh, where I work, the research laboratory and the student laboratories, they are the same, or rather in the same in the same lab we are doing the research as well as the normal routine undergraduate experiments. Now therefore, there is hardly any compartment between the research work and the laboratory work. Actually, we started our research work or this particular program by adapting certain publications which appeared in Journal of Chemical Education, particularly the microscale determination of oxalic acid, the catalytic determination of tungsten in a small scale. So we converted small scale into normal laboratory work using low-cost instrumentation, because we happen to be a part of a program of low-cost instrumentation which was initiated by Dr. K.V. Sane. And then we had many publications in this chemistry education, the journal of UGC. In this particular, what we did, that we first of all select a indicator reaction, and that indicator reaction is completely understood from kinetic point of view. That means all the parameters, they are being studied, the mechanism is being elaborated and established also. After that, then we try to have our results, that means we extend that for the estimation purposes. Estimation is very straightforward. Either we do estimation by a fixed time method, or we do estimation by fixed absorbance method. Even we can have 1-point method or even 2-point method. So therefore there can be several methods which are being adopted, and we have carried out estimation to microgram or even to nanogram amount also. Then thereafter, when this particular method has been established, that is when we published our results, after that, then we have validated this method also by using the standard procedures, and then thereafter we have converted that into a laboratory method which was used by undergraduate students for the estimation of the pharmaceutical various products. And in this particular presentation, I am just trying to indicate the estimation of methanol and the other type of compound. So it's the estimation of this particular compound. So the next slide is, naturally when we talk about the kinetic methods of analysis, then we have to first of all justify that in what way it is being better or superior than the existing method. Now actually it is being very much in demand when the reaction is very, very slow, because in static method it requires a lot of time when we have to carry out the analytical procedure. So initially, even after 1 minute or 2 minutes, one can carry out the estimation. That is the advantage. Then the indicator reaction which we have selected is the electron transfer reaction, which was our ongoing program. In that we have selected so many of metal ion oxidants and various types of organic compounds. Then objective is, of course, we want to develop the analytical procedure. Now, kinetic data has been obtained under different experimental conditions for using the standard procedure, variation of various types of parameters, and of course the product analysis, by doing the stoichiometry of the reaction and then analyzing the products by traditional method as well as by gas chromatography, high performance chromatography, and also by using the infrared spectra of the product. So we establish indicator reaction in a perfect way, and even we modify the procedure, and we have had the various types of variations. That means a range of substrate variation, range of acid variations, and so on and so forth. Because in an analytical procedure there is always a range when the analytical procedure is valid. If we go beyond that range, then also it doesn't give correct estimations, or we go below them, then also it doesn't give. So that particular range we have found out, and that is being done by using these three methods as I described: fixed time method, fixed Doppler's method, and one point method. Then these are the various variations which we are using. The fixed time method that we have drawn up. Then the next one is one point method, and then we have the validation by using these parameters which have been recommended on an international basis, that is accuracy, precision, specificity, linearity, and range, and ruggedness. So all these have been tested before, and then this method was translated to the laboratory method. So we have implemented the procedure. We have taken the commercial tablets of propranolol, and then on that particular basis we have carried out the estimations, and the results, they were like this. And these results were compared, because we have taken the various 4 types of commercially available tablets, and the students have carried out this estimation, and this is for their results. Then we compared that results with the standard method given in Indian and British pharmacopoeia, and we have again estimated by using the same. When I say we, then I mean to say the students of the undergraduate level. So that particular part has been done, and we are very much hopeful that this type of work can enhance the laboratory requirement, because nowadays the curriculum is changing, and we are having the real sample analysis in chemistry labs. So naturally, when we are having the real sample analysis, then obviously this can be one of the steps, and we can bring back the research papers which are in an obscure journal into the laboratory itself. Because most of the research papers, they are in such type of journals which have been not seen by many of the persons. So, but if they come to the lab, then actually everyone will be benefited. Now these are some of the publications which we had in recent times on the same topic, and we hope that if the students are there, then we will be extending this to many more type of things. And as Dr. Kelkar is here, so we will be even like to extend them to small scale estimations also. So some of them we are trying, and I hope that we will get the encouraging results with the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Any one or two questions? Okay, there is no question. So that is congratulate Mr. Anand. So next I invite Dr. Neha Pratha from IISc University.
Well, namaskar to all the dignitary present and all the participants over here. Well, my topic is changes in chromatographic solutes and cyclical pigments in response to initial stress as produced by lunar radiator. Since we have been focusing on green chemistry since the last year, I thought why not we see how chemistry plays an important role in agriculture. The plant is Vigna radiata, mangmi, and this is an important summer grown legume, especially in Rajasthan, which is arid and which is the climate characterized, the climate present over here is arid to semi-arid. Chlorophylls and carotenoid pigments, they play a protective role and facilitate stabilization of photosynthetic apparatus. Proline is an osmoprotectant, and it is produced under stress condition as a molecule which helps the plant to combat stress. Objectives: the research was undertaken to study effects of different level of initial stress. The the salinity levels were 25 millimole, 100 millimole, 50 millimole and 200 millimole. To estimate free protein accumulation in the leaves as well as analysis of photosynthetic pigments by HPLC and other methods. These are the materials and methods. The seeds were obtained from KVK, Banasli University, Banasli, and photosynthetic performance was done for 5 varieties. We screened 5 varieties of Vigna radiata. Out of these, 2 varieties were selected. The seeds were then washed with distilled water, they were surface sterilized, and then they were grown in hydroponics under controlled conditions in the lab. The temperature and day-night temperature is given. Then they were undergrown, then we gave salt concentration, that is NaCl stress was given to these plants under hydroponics. Determination of photosynthetic pigments. Pigments were measured according to the method given by Arnon. Then HPLC was done by the modified version of Rivas et al. And Pocock et al. Free protein content was estimated according to the method of Bates et al. 1973, statistical analysis was done, and it was done using one-way analysis of variance. Coming to the results and discussions, these are the photographs of the experiment as we proceeded with the experiment. This is 25 millimole, then we have back slide. So this is as we proceeded for variety RMG 268 and this is for variety K851. This is the result we obtained for photosynthetic pigments. As you can see, for variety RMG 268, the values retained at the last day of stress was better in comparison to variety K851. You can see the percentage has been taken out as 72% as compared to variety RMG 268, which maintained 90% values. This is the HPLC chromatogram of standards for beta carotene as well as lutein and zeaxanthin. This is, I haven't shown the chromatograms again and again because it would be a repetition of the same thing. This is the comparative table where we are showing the values of beta carotene and lutein and zeaxanthin as obtained after calculations. For variety RMG 268, interesting thing was we found out was that at 25 millimole, there was an increase in the content of beta carotene, and later on a decline was obtained. For variety K851, there was a decrease as the stress was increased. Major conclusion: a decrease of total chlorophyll with salt stress implies a lowered capacity for light harvesting. Then chlorophyll B is synthesized from chlorophyll A. As stress was continued, chlorophyll B stopped its biosynthesis and instead chlorophyll A took over. Hence there was an increase in chlorophyll A by B ratio as seen in our experiment. Then decrease of carotenoids was observed for salt stress in all varieties, but an increase was observed in 25 millimole as explained just now. Our results indicate that physiological level of carotenoids in leaves of Vigna radiata subjected to stress condition could be a mechanism to protect the plant from stress-induced reactive oxygen species. Then a major protective role of beta carotene in photosynthetic tissue may be through direct quenching of singlet oxygen, which prevents the generation of synthetic oxygen and hence it protects the plant ROS. Okay, so this is now the protein accumulation in both the varieties RMG 268, K851. Protein act as an osmoprotectant, hence there was an increase in its accumulation in both the varieties. This is a comparative graph of protein accumulation in both the varieties. The enhanced rate of protein biosynthesis in chloroplasts will contribute in maintenance of cellular homeostasis. These are the percentage calculated for 100 millimole variety RMG 268 exhibited 19% increase, whereas variety K851 it exhibited 11% increase. Similarly, at 25 millimole NaCl and at 200 millimole NaCl, again you will see that the accumulation was better in variety RMG 268 as compared to variety K851. Higher accumulation could be a better potential to maintain osmotic balance in variety RMG 268 in comparison to variety K851. Results of this research suggest that osmotic accumulation could be a possible mechanism for which could be utilized, and we can go into the chemistry of its biosynthesis as well as the genome structure. This could be exploited in breeding program and it could be helpful in our agricultural systems. Future implications: this could be, again, this research could be vital for studies under similar climatic conditions, especially when we are talking about Rajasthan. My acknowledgements are due to Professor Dr. Vinay Sharma, Head Dean of Department, Bansal University, and Dr. Nilima Kumari, Associate Professor over there. These are the references for the research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Nilima, any question?
I have a comment. I was thinking I'm sitting in an airport. Probably your presentation was fast. We could not make out the different topics. Yeah.
Any interaction? What is your answer for that one?
I've already given my answer. I thought it was for 5 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for question and answer round.
Okay, you can have detailed discussion. Okay, anyway, let us congratulate you. So if you concentrate on applied area of research, you can concentrate.
Thank you so much.
So next, I invite Ms. Oyini Rupini from New Delhi, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Topic for presentation: construction of growth for quality chemical irrigation through distance mode.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share some of the ideas regarding the chemistry education. Even though I am doing the research under the area of green chemistry, that is anti-basicals, as well as some of the nano anti-malarials also, and by using this in huge reactions. But don't be panic, especially. So because this is the last hour of the before lunch, that is also very difficult to listen, and after the first session of the after lunch also. So please bear with me. This is just I would like to give a brief idea about how the chemistry education nowadays is working, and that how we are competing in the entire world, not only in India. So this is the past as well as the present structure of chemistry teaching as well as the learning process in our country, that is the university, government and industry. That means government is playing an important role as well as the balance between the university as well as the industry. So normally university, what it will give or what is the main work of the university? It will teach, it will provide the research, as well as the research is also on the basis of the synthesis as well as the physical as well as chemical characterization. And ultimately the university will provide the knowledge to the people, that is the learner. And the second is the industry. What? The industry is always capitalize the system, and it will always look forward for the development, manufacturing, ultimately into the business. And so industry will always look for the products as well as the solutions for some important problems. So whatever it is the government, again we can say that this is a political entity. It should have the it should tackle the problems of the academics as well as the industry also, because nowadays the chemistry is the only basic element to solve the most of the global challenges nowadays the society is facing. So for the beginner, no country can afford ill-treated or we can say that low skilled persons. So that means they cannot afford unproductivity of the system out of chemistry. So for every production or every global challenges, there is a solution only from the chemistry background. So where is the problem occurs? Why we are talking about the most of the chemistry education nowadays? So that these are some of the most important challenges we are facing nowadays. That is the unprecedented growth in the technology. So that the skill, there is a lack of skillness. And the second one is the changing needs of the labor market, as the increasing demand for the relevant skills. Opting chemistry-based courses are declining, as well as the shortage in chemistry education teachers also. We cannot blame the teaching community, because being a chemistry teacher, I cannot blame the teaching community, but we can question the government, because So many people are here, and in the morning session also we heard so many things from the experts as well as the learned persons. This is not, they have not achieved by overnight thinking. So because after a lot of research, a lot of thinking, they are achieved this at this level. So just you have to go through the problems where we can achieve or where we can help to minimize these challenges. So some of the statistics, that is 60% of the population in the Commonwealth countries is young and under the age of 30. One-third of the world's poor live in Commonwealth countries, and the majority of the poor are women. And in spite of all our collective efforts, 23 million children are still out of the school and over 462 million adults illiterate. This is an unfinished agenda that needs serious attention as we approach 2015. These are some of the challenges nowadays the society is facing. So these are the big problems that is the society as well as science, that is the climate variability, water and energy and sustainability, healthcare, globalization, developing countries, jobs, robotics as well as the information. These are the most of the challenges present day we are facing. So what is the need of the hour? There is a lot of thinking is there. So the need of the hour previously, do fundamental research and someone will solve the societal problems. But nowadays that approach is wrong, we can say that. Nowadays do fundamental research to solve the societal problems. So the chemistry people, we have that sort of privilege to at least find some solutions of the global challenges. So but you cannot completely provide the solution. At least to some extent we can minimize the global challenges. So change is inevitable. That change, inevitable change also from the chemist Olympiad. So what is the modest change we can expect? That is restructure the curriculum with interdisciplinary subject approach in consultation with the industrialists. So that is the only thing we can say, that nowadays the curriculum, it is completely, that is the syllabus is structured. The teacher has to teach within the limit of the syllabus only, whether it is useful to the students, whether that is providing job opportunity to the students, or the student or the learner can compete with the entire world. That is immaterial. Only structured syllabus, only some few people will develop the curriculum, and then the teacher has to teach. So if suppose the teacher wants to teach something extended beyond the syllabus, that is useless, because students are also have that mindset that we have to learn something and then we have to reproduce in the examination, we have to get some grade. So everybody, parents, society, everybody wants a tag of that 90% or 95%. How much percentage you acquired after completion of this one? But how much? 95% or 98% students are also, those who got that percentage also did not compete with the global board. So we can concentrate on that. First is the change of the curriculum should be important to compete in the global framework. So this is because I am recently joined in Indira Gandhi National Open University as an associate professor. So this is the ODL, that is we are using this open and distance education. That is the only one thing is education is a fundamental right, just like UNESCO quoted in 2000. So that is a fundamental, that is a mandate for the distance education institutions, and the main criteria to develop the programs in open distance learning institutions are the accessibility, motivation and quality. So we can use that analysis of the program, analysis of the need, as well as the design, develop, implement, evaluate, as well as the devising. So for that, I have taken up under this chemistry education the constructivism approach. So this is the concept map of the constructivism. Constructivism is not a magical view or nothing. It is not a new thing also. That means the learner already have some idea or some knowledge about that. So the curriculum should be designed in such a way that the learner has to think and reconstruct the meaning. That is the only approach one can utilize in the chemistry curriculum also.
Please conclude.
Yes. This is the conventional classroom, constructivism classroom, as well as the ODL system. almost most of the ODL system are the programs are developing in Indira Gandhi National Open University is mainly based on the constructivism. But the only one thing is lacking is in this one is the emphasis the reasoning and critical thinking, social negotiation, self-regulation and mindful reflection. These four are lacking in the program developing as well as the designing. So to overcome these, we can use these open education resources as well as the massive open online courses using ICT technology. So for the entire students, we can say that the chemistry future is in our hands. Knowledge, everywhere it is there. You can find out anywhere. Books are through internet services and by the teacher also. So knowledge is everywhere. Teacher is main person to at least to communicate the knowledge towards the students. And the teacher is having the experience also. It is interlinking with the disciplines, but the students can create something new from the knowledge of the teacher. So now, at least from your stage, everything, those who have already expertise, those who have done a lot of research that is highly expensive, chemicals are expensive, infrastructure is expensive, but thinking is free. So you can think at your place, you can think how to design a molecule or how to design a compound which is useful for entire country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let us know that education and research in the context of social relevance that we have to know. Thank you. Next I invite Dr. Richa Gupta from IS University. Topic for presentation, efficient regioselective studies employing NMR and X-ray disclosure studies.
Namaste, Sat Shri Akal. I am Dr. Richa Gupta from IS University, Jaipur. Today the presentation topic is the efficient regioselective three-component synthesis and study of thiazolone-quinoline system by NMR, DFT and X-ray crystallography study. So first we understand what are the thiazolidinol. Actually, thiazolidinol, these are an important scaffold that is a platform in the heterocyclic chemistry. These are saturated form of the thiazole which contain a one nucleus that is a magic moiety which have many numerous applications. These possess various biological activities such as antiviral, diuretic, antituberculosic, analgesic, etc. These are two therapeutic agents which contain this thiazolidinol nucleus and showing the treatment against the diabetes. These further are therapeutic agents like thiamine, pamphylene, troglitazone which contain these thiazolidinol nucleus and showing various treatment against showing the treatments. So in this way we see that thiazolidinol has various biological activities. So these are attracted the attention of the researcher to explore this phenomenon. So here I have synthesized newly synthesized compounds which are studied under the DFT structure. So this is the DFT functional theory where newly synthesized compounds are optimized and calculated 1 proton NMR C13 NMR by using the Dredber software package version 6.5112 and with VC and YP exchange correlation function. Here I have used 631G double star and LaTeX basic sets. So by using this theoretical study, I have calculated 1 proton as well as C13 NMR which are correlated with the experimental data. Newly synthesized compounds are characterized on the basis of the elemental analysis, FTIR, NMR, mass spectroscopy as well as X-ray. The X-ray is carried out on Excalibur Excalibur US X4 diffractometer. This is the methodology where the structure of the thiazolidinol. Sulfur is present at position 1, nitrogen at 3 and carbonyl group at position 4. Actually this is a biological active compound. When this biological active compound is correlated with the another biological active compound and provide a potent structure. So here the mainstay for the formation of this condensed 4-thiazolidinol nucleus either position 3 or position 2, position 2 and 5, position 2, 3 or 2, 5 or position 3 and 5. But the mainstay for our synthesis is the position 2 and 3 and very few publications are regarding the other positions. So this is the scheme of my research work which is related to the synthesis of the thiazolidinol nucleus. So this is the beta tetron which was purchased from the sigma Aldrich and used as such. When this beta tetron condensed with the 4-methoxy benzaldehyde in the presence of the glacial acetic acid and thiourea, it undergoes cyclization and gives the compound 3. That is the thion. When this thion is reacted with the chloroacetic acid, it undergoes cycloconvertation. So here it provided either structure 4 or its isomer structure 10. But here TLC give only single product. It means here only one product is formed, either compound 4 or compound 10. Here the IR as well as mass spectroscopy give a very little information for deciding which structure is correct for the final compound. So this is done on the basis of the 1-proton NMR spectroscopy, X-ray crystallography as well as DFT study that clarifies that structure 4 is correct. For proper comparison whether structure 4 is correct or structure 10 is correct for the final structure, I have prepared structure 5. It is also a tetracyclic, but the difference is that here the carbonyl group is present, but this compound is without carbonyl group, which is prepared with the help of thion 3 with 1,2-dibromethane. Here further compound 6 was again prepared 6 and either compound 6 or compound 8 is prepared and the characterization or the of the structure 6 is carried out again on the basis of the 1-proton NMR spectra. This is the aryidine derivative which is prepared by 2 methods. First method, this is the thiazolidinol compound. When it reacted with the glacial acetic acid and aromatic benzaldehyde provide this aryidine derivative. In the second method, it is directly obtained from the thion 3. This aryidine structure again confirmed on the basis of the 1-proton NMR spectroscopy. Yeah, this is the proper comparison here. Actually, there are 2 chances, either compound 4 is formed or compound 8 is formed. So this is done on the basis of the 1-proton NMR spectroscopy. So if compound, for proper comparison, I have again told we have prepared compound 5 or compound 9 from compound 3. If this compound is without this carbonyl group. So this is the proper comparison. So by comparing, if structure 8 is correct, it means this proton NMR this H8 gives the same value in 1-proton NMR shift as given by compound 5 or compound 8. But if structure 4 is correct, it means this HA undergo de-shading effect in the NMR spectroscopy due to this carbonyl group of the thiazolidinol nucleus. So the value is obtained for 1-proton NMR in this 4 or 8 compounds is appeared at 6.11 and in case of 5 and 9 this appeared at 5.56. It means here de-shielding takes place and the structure 4 is correct for the final product. For further comparison with this thion, again de-shielding effect takes place and the value is appeared at 5.32 in case of structure 3 and in case of compound 4 this appeared at 6.1. So this is the 1-proton NMR spectra where this HA appeared at 5.32. This is the 1-proton NMR spectra for compound 5. This value is appeared at 6.11. This is a C13 spectrum due to this carbonyl group. The appeared at 170. Yes. Yeah, this is the X-ray crystallography. X-ray crystallography which is obtained by the slow evaporation method, which clarify our validation against the structure 4. These are the optimized structure which are obtained by the DFT study for the compound 4 as well as compound 5. These are the data which show the physical data as well as structure refinement table for that structure where CCDC number is the 930628. These are the bond length as well as bond angles which are obtained by X-ray study. These are one proton as well as one proton chemical shift for the structure 4 as well as structure 8. We are showing the experimental data. These are the calculated tension shields which are obtained theoretically. So while using these values, we have calculated and obtained the value for the calculated NMR. Yes, sir. Yeah, these are the C13 NMR, where again shows the experimental as well as the theoretical study, as well as C13 NMR chemical shifts which are obtained by these are the experimental values and these are the calculated values which are obtained by the theoretical study. Yeah, these are the different graphs which show the correlation between the experimental as well as the theoretical study. Here in graph 1, if we see that their correlation coefficient for the structure 4 is 0.98 and showing the results that compound 4 is the finalized. And thanks.
Thank you. Let us give a applause to the researcher. Thank you, Gupta. Next, I invite Dr. Tina Bari.
Thank you for present my presentation on the topic. Here we are modeling of hydrogen derivatives and hydrogen. I go after Dr. A.D. Bajaj and Dr. Neeraj Mandre from DUB University in Now. Hydrogens are a class of organic compounds with the structure R1, R2, C, double bond N, NH2. Hydrogens are present in many of the bioactive compounds because of their diverse pharmacological applications. Hydrogens possess various biological properties such as anticonvulsant, antidepressant, analgesic, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, anti-cancerous, anti-hypertensive, anti-helminthic, anti-parasitic and other anti-inflammatory activities. Therefore, many researchers have synthesized hydrogen derivatives and target structures for the biological activities. This paper focuses on the cardiotonic properties of hydrogen derivatives. Cardiotonic agents are the agents which have strengthening effect on myocardium and increase the force of myocardial contraction and thus have great value in the treatment of cardiac failure. The skeletal structure of the compound taken under study is this, where R group varies with different hydrogen derivatives. The methodology used in the present paper is QSAR, that is quantitative structure activity relationship. QSAR explains the variations in biological activity of a given series of drug molecule in terms of the variations in physicochemical, structural and conformational properties of drug molecules. The objective of present investigation is to determine the topological indices. Different topological indices are calculated using mathematical graph of the chemical compound, and these topological indices are further used for modeling cardiotonic agents. In this section, in results and discussion, we have done modeling of hydrogen derivatives as cardiotonic agents. The structural details of these compounds are given in table 1. This is the extension of table 1. These are the different derivatives. These are the topological indices which I have calculated in my research. The abbreviations of all the topological indices are given at footnotes of the table. W is minor index, G is lattice index, M is shelf molecular topological index, J, F and G are the Balaban indexes, T is topological index, M1 and M2 are the Zagreus Global index. These are the selection results obtained from the data. The residual report here shows that compound number 1, 3, 4 and 6, the residual values are quite higher than the normal values or the average values. So these are eliminated and the results obtained are, correct to the previous slide. The plot of R square is the number of descriptors provided break at the use of 2 parameters. This is also the maximum number of descriptors we can use in obtaining appropriate model based on the rule of thumb. The monoparametric model here as well as the parametric model here obtained shows a very low value of R square. Therefore, these are not statistically significant models. Therefore, the compound number 1, 3, 4 and 13, these are eliminated, which I showed you in the table 3. And then after that the best model obtained is given here. So the conclusion can be given as the By deleting the outlier, the quality of regression model has improved to a much greater extent that its value of R-square has increased from 0.1658 to 0.7680, which shows about 77% variation in the biological activity. The graph obtained between predicted log of I by R60 value as well as actual log I by R60 value gives this graph. The correlation matrix obtained of the best model is given here in the table 7 and 8. The risk statistics also show that it is the multicollinearity is not a problem, which is given at the footnote of table 8. Since the VIF value, that is variance inflation factor, values are less than 10 and condition numbers are less than 100, hence multicollinearity is not a problem. These are the risk-based sections of the tables obtained on the basis of table 8. Any queries?
Thank you. Any questions? So this presentations and concluding this session. So at the outset I congratulate the young chemistry researcher especially from IISc University who are working in the emerging area of research. At the outset also congratulate all the participants for presenting the research papers. I express sincere thanks to the organizing committee for giving an opportunity to chair this session. Thank you. Next session is lunch session.
To greet Professor Pardesani, Professor S. Kelkar and Professor Chand Wadkar with token of appreciation. Thank you, ma'am. May I now request the chairperson to take over the session.
Good afternoon, all of you. I welcome for this technical session 8 for this conference. And our first speaker is Professor R.D. Pardesani. Professor Pardesani, Dean, School of Chemical Science and Pharmacy, Professor and Head of the Department of Chemistry, Central University of Rajasthan, District Atlanta. Research specializations will be synthetic organic and heterocyclic chemistry, organic photochemistry, boron chemistry, and computational chemistry and molecular modeling. His educational qualifications are BSc, MSc, PhD with the natural products chemistry as well as with the synthetic organic chemistry. He has got 29 years of teaching experience and his research experience is for 33 years. His interested fields are spectroscopy, heterocyclic chemistry, research, metallurgy and organic chemistry labs for MSc Part 1, Part 2. And he is a member of International Society of Heterocyclic Chemistry, life member of Indian Science Congress, Kolkata, life member of Indian Chemical Society, Kolkata, life member of Chemical Research Society of India, Bangalore, and he has got many awards. He is a visiting scientist, University of Wales, Swansea, UK, Royal Society, London, Then Dr. Ghanshyam Srivastav Venuga Award, INSS Visiting Fellow, and Need-cum Merit Scholarship he has got. He has produced 17 students for his PhD, and 3 students are currently working under him for the PhD. And he has got the postdoctoral experience. So I request Professor R.D. Rajan to begin the session. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, for kind words of introduction. At the outset, I thank Professor R.K. Bansal, my teacher and mentor, for giving me the opportunity and inviting me to present some of our work here. He specially told me to talk about some of the computational chemistry that we have been doing over the years. So I have based my talk on applications of computational chemistry to organic synthesis. So I thank the Professor Bansal, Dr. Rakesh Gupta and the faculty of this IIS University for this giving me the opportunity and holding this wonderful conference. It's great to meet many of the old colleagues here, and over the past 25 years, we have been working on the synthesis of spirolytrocycles and other lytrocycle frameworks. And one of the problems that we used to encounter was how to address the regio and stereoselectivity involved in the cycloaddition reactions that we have been doing to synthesize products. So during the 90s, we started this computational chemistry work. It was first inspired by Professor Bansal. In fact, we were in the adjoining rooms, so he really inspired me to learn these calculations. And later, I did work with Professor Jelvis and learned the calculations from him also, and started working on these. So the talk that I am going to present is, the first part will deal with the introduction to computational methods, especially for the young audiences which are sitting here. I thought for their benefit, I will tell you what are the different chemical computational methods that are available. And then in the next 3 sections, I will be dealing with 3 different types of problems. Applications of computational chemistry to 1,3-dipolar cycloaddition reactions involving polar species. Next, we will look at the cycloaddition reactions involving photocycloadditions involving phenols, in which we are dealing with radicals. And lastly, the last section has been done by MSc project students at Central University, in which we shall be dealing with the problem of regioselectivity in the bromination of naphthalene. So, computational methods are based on 2 types of theories. One is molecular mechanics and other is electronic structure theory. And these are useful in computing the energy, geometry optimizations and vibrational frequencies. What we get from computational methods is these 3. Then molecular mechanics uses the laws of classical mechanics. In molecular mechanics, the program does the calculations based on nucleus interactions. It does not take into account the interactions of the electrons around it. So the different programs that are available under molecular mechanics are MM3, Hyperchem, and all these. The second is electronic structure theory, EST. These use the laws of quantum mechanics, and here a Hamiltonian is applying the Schrodinger equation. A Hamiltonian as a function calculates the energy of the system. So this is a much better method, and the electronic structure theory. In electronic structure theory, there are two methods. One is called semi-empirical methods. These are AM1 and mostly EM3 and come under a package of like MOPEC or Gaussian. And for getting these methods, we have to derive from some experimental data. But as I said, these do not involve the interactions of electrons. So it is not possible to find out transition states using semi-empirical methods or non-covalent interactions like hydrogen bonding, and there are a lot of limitations. But the advantage is it is very cheap and can be applied without much problem. The second class of methods under electronic structure theory are ab initio methods, which are based on the laws of quantum mechanics, and here we do not use any experimental parameter. For example, here the common method is Hartree-Fock theory. An advanced version of the electronic structure theory is the DS density functional methods, in which some other function is added. And these methods in this are B3-LIB is very common here. The energy of the molecule is a functional of the density. So in these methods we can perform the calculation to find out the electron density of the molecule. This is more attractive because these include effects of electron correlation. So these are some of the computational methods which we have applied in our research work. And to apply each computation method, we need to have basis set. A basis set is a mathematical expression for the defining of the molecular orbitals. And there are three types of basis sets which we normally encounter. One is called minimal basis set. It contains minimum number of basic functions needed to describe atom. For example, in minimal basis set, hydrogen has one s, one orbital only. Carbon has one s, 2s, 2px, y. These are called Slater type orbitals. The name was given by Popper. The second type of basis set is called split valence basis set. In this, suppose you have an electron, but there are other orbitals also present, and it is interacting with it. So one more function is added. So for now 1s, there is another 1s. Similarly, in case of carbon, we have added another orbital to consider the interactions from the neighboring electrons. So common basic set under this is 3 to 1g, where 3 is the number of Gaussian functions summed to describe the inertial. 2 stands for the number of Gaussian functions that comprise the first Slater type orbital. This is for second Slater type orbital. So suppose we have 2 carbons, then in this 3 to 1g it is considered like this. And the third one is the polarized basis set. Suppose some other heavier element is there and it is interacting with the orbital of the carbon, for example, then its shape gets changed. So to add this function, this is the new thing, and over here, in this function, what we do is that we add another calculation. So this is called 631g. So these are the summary of the basic sets. over here. And the third dimension to calculations is the electron spin. For electron spin, there are two possibilities. Closed shell, in which the electrons are considered to be paired, and this is called restricted calculation. And other is open shell, in which the electrons are unpaired. This is called unrestricted calculation. And in unrestricted calculations are needed for systems with unpaired electrons, including molecular mechanics and odd number of electrons. After this, there are several theories once you do the calculations, how to interpret the results. So there are several theories for the interpretation of the result. Resonance theory is there, FMO approach, electrostatic potential, thermal purpose, reactivity indicator, local nucleophilic index, Fukai function, local ionization energy surface, and dual descriptor. And there are many. So we have applied some of these theories for the interpretation of our results. This is the flow chart of how one proceeds for calculations. For example, we take single part, we optimize the ground state geometry and then do the frequency calculation. From frequency calculation, we optimize the transition state. In transit reaction coordinate calculation, and it tells us about the reaction pathway. That is, we predict the mechanism of a given reaction by doing these calculations. On the other side, from frequency calculation, we perform the natural bond order calculations. It tells us of the HOMO and LUMOS, apply FMO theory, and predict reduced selectivity. The other way is from NBO, go to the natural charge, that is electron charge, then work out the Fukai function, and then it leads to the prediction of reduced selectivity. So these are the steps which we have to perform experimentally for doing the calculations. So with this background, we now take the problems that we have attempted using these calculations. So the first we have looked at the 1,3 dipolar cycloaddition reactions to synthesize a number of spiro heterocycles, because these spiro compounds are valuable for synthesis of bioactive molecules. The mechanism is that initially iminium ion is formed, which is undergoes loss of CO2 with the stereospecific 1,3 cycloreversion process to give what we call as azomethionylide. 1,3 dipolar cycloaddition reactions with ethylenic or acetylic dipolarified then gives the spiro products. The structure of some of the compounds has been confirmed by X-ray, and they also show antioxidant and toxicological activities. But the main challenge before us was what is the stereochemical course of the cycloaddition reaction. And this we tried to address by computational calculations. And for this purpose, the model case that we selected was reaction of isotene with R-thiazolidine 4-carboxylic acid, giving this azomethionylide, 1,3 dipolar cycloaddition with, say for example, methyl acrylate, then gives this. So this is the model reaction that we started. First, the geometry optimization of the azomethionylide was done, and it was found that the azomethionylide has a planar structure. The thiazolidine ring, instead of having envelope shape, is planar and lies in the same plane as that of isotene. And this nuclear charge over here along the CNC dipole is stabilized by overlapping into the isotene nucleus. This charge in the dipole is stabilized by overlapping into the nucleus. Two conformations for the azomethionelides were possible. One is called NT, in which this CO and CH are anti to each other. And the other is called SYN, in which this CH and CO are syn to each other. Both the azomethyl halides have almost same heat of formation, indicating that both are present in the solution. But anti-isomer is slightly stable, and the transition state calculation showed that the interconversion to each other is separated by energy gap of 16.3 kilocalories per mole. These are the optimized geometries of both the syn and anti forms of azomethyl halides. Next, the mode of attack of dipolorophile on azomethyl halide was considered. The dipolorophile, for example, methyl acrylate, can attack either of the anti or syn azomethyl halide. In case of anti, the attack is possible from the top, because if it attacks from the top, then this thiazolidine ring will go out. This is what is called as outward movement. Whereas in case of syn isomer, the dipolorophile approach from the bottom, with the result this is inward movement of the thiazolidine and this ring. So, if either of these two processes take place, then it results into formation of a product having 3 chiral carbon atoms. So that means a total of 8 plus 8, 16 isomers could be possible. We tried to look at the geometries of all the 18 possible isomers. These 4, for the top 4 result from the outward movement of the azomethyl halide by top attack of this. Similarly, these 4 arise from the bottom attack of this, and these are the similarly opposite to the top 8. The calculation shows that for the bottom 8 isomers, concentric mechanism is not possible. If the azomethyl halide is attacking if the dipolorophile is attacking the azomethyl halide, for example, anti-azomethyl halide, from the bottom, then concerted mechanism is not possible, because the thiazolidine ring will go in the same direction. Similarly, in the case of syn isomer, if the dipolorophile is attacking from the top, then concerted mechanism is not possible. So on this basis, these last 8 isomers were ruled out and only the top 8 were considered. We did the calculations for all the 8 isomers, and it was found that energetically they were all having almost similar heat of formation. So that means that theoretically, thermodynamically, there is equal possibility for formation of all of these. So the next question was, which one of these is kinetically controlled? So we looked at the homo-LUMO energy gaps, and this was addressed by the FMO approach, in which we found that the HOMO of dipole and the energy difference between HOMO of dipole and LUMO of dipolorophile is lower as compared to this one. So it is concluded that the favorable path is HOMO dipole and LUMO dipolorophile. Next, atomic orbital calculations, coefficients were calculated and show that there is uneven distribution of electronic density along this C and C dipole. For example, at this carbon, which is C1 I should say, there is charge of 0.595, over here it is 0.5 to 9. In the dipolorophile methyl acrylate, this is 0.737 and this. So bond formation will occur with this going to this and this carbon making bond with this. Thus there is much better overlap between C1 of azomethyl halide and C1 of methyl acrylate, and this results in the formation of these 2 isomers.